Welcome to the City Center Podcast. I'm Jerry Marcello. So, you're a homeowner, or you're thinking about buying a home in West Palm Beach. You sign up for homeowners insurance, then pony up for windstorm insurance. You think you're all covered, right? No, you're not. Today, we're going to talk about flood insurance. Protection against flood is important for everyone in South Florida, not just along the coast. What if you live in a tall condo or rent an apartment? You should be looking into flood insurance as well. We'll talk to an expert about how you can protect yourself from a very common Florida calamity. That's coming up next. And joining us today is Robert Norberg, president of Arden Insurance. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You know, I'm a homeowner here in South Florida, okay? And, I came to the state, bought a house, went through the requisite of, looking at insurance, picking out insurance. And then I was struck by the fact that someone walked up and said to me and said, well, what about flood insurance? Now, I was surprised that it's a separate entity. It's a separate thing altogether. Tell us a little bit about what the difference is between a regular home policy and what flood insurance involves.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that people don't really understand always. Your homeowner's policy is basically an all-encompassing type of policy in most cases, but it does not cover flood insurance. And most people think, well, I'm not in a flood zone per se, so they say, well, I don't need that unless the bank's going to require it. But we in the industry have to educate people and tell them that everyone is in a flood zone. It's just a matter of whether it's a high hazard or low hazard. Okay. And, the banks are only requiring flood insurance as separate policy when you are in a high hazard area.
Okay, I see. So, all right. So, again, if I'm new to Florida and I'm new to the game of getting homeowners insurance, I can get insurance that covers contents of my home, the structure of my home. Again, but flood is different. And why did they break that out? Why is there a different policy altogether?
Well, again, it's a different type of thing, a different type of coverage. Most people think that flood is any water that's in your house, and that's not flood insurance. Flood insurance covers only water rising up from the outside coming into the house from any source. Okay. So a lot of people will call me and say, hey, my pipe's broke, or I got a leak in the house and I've got a flood. That's not flood insurance. That's water damage covered by the homeowner's policy.
Okay. So yeah. All right. So
there's a big misconception about what flood really is, first of all.
Right.
Yeah.
So like a good example, say if there's a problem and you have a toilet backup, that would not be flood insurance. It's homeowners.
Right.
Okay.
And so, but the good thing is that you can buy policies relatively cheap for flood, even in the low hazard areas. And we like to educate people and tell them they need to understand that 25% of all flood claims happen in low hazard areas. So a lot of the flooding, for example, that took place during recent hurricanes on the west coast of Florida, a lot of those people did not have flood insurance because they were in low hazard, but they ended up needing flood insurance once everything moved in. So it's a good idea to look into flood insurance no matter where you are in Florida.
Is it a myth that the highest or you really got to worry about flood if you're living within a very short distance of the coast?
Yeah, most people think that they only need flood if they're near the coast. But as we know from all these studies and things like that, people that are inland, even out in Loxahatchee or out west near Grassy Waters or in Ibis, there are low-lying areas there that flood. And you need flood insurance there. There are some high hazard areas all the way in the central part of the state that are high areas for flooding. So it just depends on the geography around you, the lakes, the water system. I mean, back in 1999, we had a lot of flooding in western Boynton, and mainly because the water evacuation system was not working properly. A lot of the floodgates weren't opened in the canals. A lot of the people that were living in cul-de-sacs where water ran in ended up having flooding issues.
Now, I as a personal story, I used to have a home up in Palm Beach Gardens, right near I-95. This is many, many years ago, before that area has really been developed up. And what happened is that we had basically a weather system stall out over our neighborhood, literally, and dump inches and inches and inches of rain. And the water started to rise, and we were, we're 3 or 4 miles from the water, from the ocean, and we see the water rising and rising. And then the actual thing that really caused this problem was that we were next to a U Pick'em farm.
Correct.
And the U Pick'em farm opened up their floodgates, and it poured into our neighborhood.
Right.
And I'll never forget it. It was totally shocking to think we're this far away from what we consider to be hazardous areas for flooding, and we were getting flooded out.
Right.
So yes, absolutely, you can be deep in central parts of the county and the city of West Palm Beach and be really in danger of flooding.
Right. And that's the thing about a flood policy. It's very specific. Water rising up from the outside coming into your house.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we've had some freak incidences where a city pipe breakage, a water main, can break and flood a whole neighborhood. And if you don't have flood insurance, zero coverage.
So in that instance, because a main broke and caused the flood, you're still covered in that situation, or does it have to be a natural? No, it's not.
No, from any source.
Oh, from any source.
So you can have, a fire hydrant blow and flood your house. The only stipulation under the federal flood program is water has to rise up and flood your property and a neighboring property. Okay. You can't have a singular property flood. However, there are some incidences where they look at the swale, the street, those type of things, and they consider those a neighboring property. So, and then when you're on acreage, of course, it's going to be how much acreage is flooded.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about all the little places that people would not have thought about as being areas of prone to flooding or possible flooding. How would I know as a homeowner what my danger is? Is there some sort of historical record or something I can look at to find out what danger I'm in?
Yeah, you can go to the National Flood Program or the FEMA site and plug in your address and find out your flood zone and your, propensity to flooding. So it will tell you whether you're in high risk or low risk. The other easy way is to ask your insurance agent.
Sure.
Call your insurance agent and say, hey, run me a flood quote. Let me know what's going on. And with the programs we have today, they're very sophisticated. They will print out the national flood maps. They will give you all the information you need to know so that you can assess your risk of flooding. But like I said, the low hazard zones are significantly cheaper for flood insurance than, if you're in high hazard.
Yeah. And to be clear here, because we could jump over, and I know a lot of people are familiar with, wind damage or windstorm type of insurance that can be very, very expensive in this part of the world. Flood insurance, I think I'm understanding, doesn't necessarily be in that same kind of ballpark.
That's correct. Unless most of your, like we talked about earlier, your coastal areas, your beach properties, those type of things are going to be a lot more expensive than if you're in, say, western parts of the county.
Right.
Plus, when you're in a low hazard zone, they say, okay, the likelihood of flooding here is significantly less, so the price comes down.
I got you.
And that varies based on companies. It used to be that, several years back, you could only get flood insurance through the federal flood program. Today, we've got probably dozens of private market companies that also will give you flood insurance, and sometimes significantly cheaper, plus better coverage than the National Flood Program. So there's a lot of different caveats you got to look into.
Right.
Talk to your agent, call an agent, make sure you look it up on the FEMA site. You can find flood insurance fairly easily.
They say call your agent. You're saying that your homeowner, the agent who provided you with your homeowner's insurance, can also help you with the flood insurance.
Right.
There's not a special.
Yeah. And most good agents out there offer you flood insurance when you come to them on the first time.
Right.
But again, you should relook at this. We've got sea level rise. We've got a lot of things going on. We've got king tides that are happening now here in the area that didn't happen years ago when I was growing up. So you may need flood insurance now when you didn't need it years ago.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a really important issue. I mean, with climate change and the threats of what climate change may bring, have you, as a person involved in insurance, seen an increase in claims against flooding because of that?
Well, it's mainly because of the weather patterns changing.
Yeah.
I mean, most of our recent storm events in times of right now, in the last 5, 6 years, have ended up being a flood related event because of the amount of rain they're dropping, how the waters are being pushed inland where they normally wouldn't. So that's the type of thing that I worry about mostly. I mean, you could be in a mile from the coast and still get flooding now with the way that these storms have been working.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I mean, I would suggest that everybody out there just consider it. Call your agent, have them run the quote, and say, okay, what's the risk versus the reward? Yeah.
And the agent would be the one who will go ahead and check the flood zones and
Right.
and figuring out what your actual danger is in your location. They can share
Right.
that with you. That's that's a great value.
Yeah.
That's an important thing. In your experience, again, are we seeing that if you are living, say, east of US 1 or east of one of the main north-south highways, are you in greater danger, or is it all
Yeah.
about the same?
No, it is. It gets as you get coastal, but it depends. I mean, the high hazard zones keep getting updated. We just had a recent update here in the county,
Mhm.
and some of the maps were expanded to be closer or further west than they used to be. So the high hazard zones have progressively moved inland.
Mhm.
So people that used to be, for example, just west of Olive, now some of those are a high hazard zone.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of that has to do with the way they've, got the maps down to within 6 inches of these elevations. So the very sophisticated technology nowadays has helped, because before it used to be, almost a Flagler and a little bit past Flagler
Yeah.
here in West Palm. And then now it's moved all the way up to Olive.
Did those change recently happen?
Yeah, it happened last year.
Ah.
Yeah, so the new maps came out last year. And so some of these people that had loans got notified by their bank and said, hey, now you have to provide flood insurance. And they're like, well, what happened?
What happened? What
Yeah.
changed?
So, and then we have to educate them on how the maps changed.
Yeah.
And we have to provide flood insurance.
When we've talked about owning a home, is there any provision or any kind of thing that a renter needs to worry about, or is that purely up to the landlord?
Well, no, it's up to the renter,
Oh.
because the renter's contents is not covered by the landlord's policy. So if you're in a high hazard area, say you live east or right on the coast and you're renting, you got to think about your contents,
Sure.
because your contents, your stuff, your furniture and those things are not covered by the landlord's policy.
Would you be protected with just standard renter's insurance, or do you need to look at some sort of?
No, same rules apply. So you can have a renter's policy,
Yeah.
and it covers everything else, your fire, your windstorm, and all those type of things. But it does not cover flood.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's new and important information for me.
Yeah.
If you are renting, you can have renter's insurance, but you're still not covered
Yeah.
for possible damage from flooding.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And there's another unique thing we have to deal with here. A lot of people that are in higher condos, say they're second floor and above.
Yeah.
A lot of those people feel that, hey, I might be in high hazard, but I'm elevated. I don't need flood insurance. Well, there has been cases where if you have flood insurance on upper floors, you're much better protected from things like a huge assessment for that building. Because what happens is a flood comes in and knocks out all the systems, and then you get a assessment from your building that says, hey, our flood coverage only covered this amount, plus we got to now redo all the elevators, the electric, and everything like that. And you on the 6th floor get an assessment that says, hey, owe us $20,000 for the assessment. If you have a flood policy, it would pay that in many cases.
Wow.
So you weren't impacted directly, but indirectly you were impacted. So a lot of people don't know about that when they're living in these condos upper floors.
Sure, I would immediately jump to your first assumption.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm here on the 10th floor. I'm cool.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Right.
Wow.
So, and that we've seen that happen on some of the West Coast flooding where the bottom floor and the whole building had to be reconstructed, which includes all the systems that supply the upper units.
You know, looking at some of the video of the unfortunate, terrible storm that we saw run across the Florida West Coast, we saw many hundreds of cars that were destroyed by floodwaters.
Yeah.
What about that? Is there something, do you buy flood insurance for your car, or is that covered? Yeah.
Flood insurance on car policies is covered under comprehensive coverage.
Okay.
So when people buy comp and collision,
Right.
okay, the comp covers things like flooding, fire, hail damage, all those type of things, windstorm events. But interestingly enough, a lot of people say, well, you know, my car's a little bit older, I'm not going to buy that comp. And then they go get flooded out or stuck in a flooding area. And that's where we had a ton of claims on the West Coast. A lot of those claims were flooded out cars everywhere you see. And those are basically a total loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can't, once saltwater intrusion gets in a car, there's nothing you can do. But a lot of those people, well, I dropped comp and collision a few years ago to save some money. Guess what? No coverage.
That's an eye opener.
Right.
So, okay. So we've seen just how flooding could theoretically impact almost every point of your life as far as property and just taking care of your shelter and your home. So it's important to, just going over it again, not to assume that any particular area is a safe zone, especially here in Palm Beach County and in West Palm Beach.
That's correct. Yeah. And we tell everybody, if you're in Florida, check out a flood policy.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you are, inland, coastal, or whatever.
Yeah.
Check out a flood policy. You may, in fact, need it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not talking a ginormous amount of money. This is something that, you know, people have their head spin when they see what windstorm may be involved.
Right.
But a flood insurance is a little bit more approachable.
Correct.
Okay.
And here's another twist we deal with in Florida. Many of our clients out there have citizens policies, citizens windstorm insurance, or a citizens homeowners. Well, Citizens has been in the process of requiring flood for every one of their policyholders that has windstorm coverage. And that started a few years ago. Currently, if your home is valued with Citizens at $400,000 or above, which many homes are nowadays, you're going to be required to get a flood policy, whether you're in high hazard or low hazard. So if you have windstorm coverage with Citizens, you better look into getting flood because they're going to require it or they're going to non-renew the policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the message is clear.
Yeah.
If you're going to be smart and you're living in South Florida, whether you rent, whether you own, it's smart to look into this. And it's as simple as a phone call to your current insurance agent.
Yeah, your current agent, any agent. And there are actually some online sources too that are now providing direct flood to the consumer.
If you had the opportunity to send a message to the folks at home that are on the fence about really looking into this, what would you tell them?
Well, the message is clear. If you live in Florida, you need flood insurance, no matter if you're a homeowner or a renter or a building owner. And that goes for commercial as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of these commercial companies don't think they need flood insurance. And again, when that street flooding comes and floods out their business, if they don't have a flood policy, then they're out of luck. Yeah.
Robert, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you sharing this vital information with our audience.
Yeah, it's great. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. There's a lot online about flood insurance, so a great place to start is right here on the city's website. Just visit WPB.org/flood for information and important links to official information about flood zones, flood hazards, and how to get the right flood insurance for your home. Thanks to Robert Norberg of Arden Insurance. The City Center Podcast is a production of the City of West Palm Beach Communications Department. I'm Jerry Marcello. We'll see you next time.